So is it leads or your sales reps? So that's the question today. And we hear this all the time. Got all these leads coming in, and the sales professionals aren't converting those leads to meetings and meetings to business. So are we getting bad leads, or is it the sales professionals themselves? Well, frankly, it's one of the questions that you've got to answer if your 2019 numbers are going to be any good, because sales projections based off of meetings, proposals, etc., are based on ability that your sales team has to convert those leads to meetings and proposals, etc. So what I want to first have you think about is, what type of sales rep do you have when you're putting this assessment together? Because the way we deal with it is, there's an SMB rep and there's an enterprise rep. And for simplicity, the difference between the two is the enterprise reps dealing with CIOs and above typically, and the SMB reps dealing with the CEO at the smaller companies and other staff. And you can decide what seat size those folks are based on your markets and the verticals that you're in. But this is important because the expectations of setting meetings are separate from those two types of sales reps. Then lead management itself as a skill. What I mean by lead management is taking a lead and the skill it takes to take the different types of leads and convert them to meetings. Is not something that every single sales rep knows how to do properly. And to the extent you can manage them as the sales leader is significant. And you got to take the lead management effort and turn it into what we call a marketing quota. And if they can't meet the marketing quota in a certain window of time, you're never going to hit the GP quota anyway. So let's start there and get that working, get that figured out. Now, we've broken the leads up into 4 types of leads. You may have more different types or less types. This is what we've used to make it simple for us. So first lead is a form submission. That one's easy. Engage pretty quickly, really quickly, and set a meeting. This person's got an issue right now and they want it taken care of, and hopefully you can get on a call with them and get a meeting scheduled. Second one's what we call a hot lead. A hot lead is someone who responded to an email campaign and did a lot of things when they did it, meaning they downloaded the white paper, they watched the video, they went to your LinkedIn profile, they went to your website, they're on the landing page, they're all over the place. They've made 7, 8, 9, 10 different types of activities that tells me this person is not just shopping around. They are hot, they're interested. Now, the way you engage them, the cadence, the email follow-up is a skill in and of itself. Third lead, it's a warm lead. Didn't have 10, 11 activities, maybe I had 4 or 5. I'm interested, but I'm not ready to do anything today. I'm just sort of a tire kicker right now. But if you continue to educate me and follow up and nurture me properly, you can turn me into a hot lead and maybe even a form submission. But again, that is a skill that as a sales professional, you have to do that properly. Then of course, the last one is what we call a cold lead. This is a person who just clicked on the email, or maybe their software that they use clicked on the email. They didn't actually do it themselves. We don't know if they're interested in anything, and they may not be. And you have more of those than you will of all the others. But there's a skill to that too. Now, a bunch of those folks aren't going to qualify, but there are some in there that are. You have to nurture them and give them a chance to make a decision on whether they want to do business with you or see any type of need for you to engage. But if you just ignore them because they're cold, that's not smart either. But again, there's a skill to how you do that. The follow-up email that goes out to those folks, the voicemail message you leave for those folks, all of the follow-up activities that go with that are super, super important. So one of the things you need to think about when you're doing this is, we always hear about the hunter and the farmer sales rep. And I love that description. A lot of you have a sales professional on your team who you think are hunters, but they're not. They are farmers. Now, that's not bad, which means if you give them an appointment in front of a qualified prospect, they can go in, they can qualify, they can warm up, they can find the business pain, they can do a business needs analysis, conduct a consultative approach, and get the business. But they can't hunt. And you've asked them to do that. And you're driving business and projections based on their skill to hunt. Get yourself a hunter. Now, I will tell you that there are people out there that can do both. Well, we call them the hybrids. And they're rare, and they're usually employed because they can do both extremely well. And the hunting is something that requires a very specific skill of how to manage leads. I'll give you an example. 100 years ago, I was a commodities broker. And in the process of doing that, I'll never forget what the manager told me when I got hired. He said, Gary, I want you to make 400 calls a day, not 399, 400 calls. And I mean, you haven't been rejected with making phone calls until you get an 89-year-old school teacher to curse you out on the phone for calling her too much. And then you got to respond from that rejection and get back on the next call because you got a call volume to hit. So that mindset, that attitude, that approach, just I'm going to hunt until I find and get a meeting, is something that has to be built into your sales professional or trained. Now, if they can't do it, then you need to get yourself a BDR rep, someone who can do it and drive the meetings. Because if you can't sustain the meeting number, you can't sustain the proposals and the new sales numbers. It's that simple. So you've got to figure out how to do that. And the folks you have on your team may or may not be the right people, or may or may not be trained properly. Either way, you have to solve it if your 2019 numbers are going to have any substance to them. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much. Again, Gary Beach from SBC International.